This is Detroit's Morning Answer with John Anthony on FM 92.7 and AM 1400. The Answer.
We were just waiting on the edge of a knife. When are we going to get to go?
I wasn't worried about, getting shot or getting wounded. I was worried about the guys to my left and right.
I told him that I wanted to go, and he looked at me and said, "Son, you're gonna die." Foreign policy, I don't make it. I just deliver the last 600 meters of it.
Wow, that gave me goosebumps. That was the documentary, The Last 600 Meters, directed by Michael Pack, our next guest. As President Trump advances his latest peace efforts in the Middle East, many are calling this a historic shift, a turning point after decades of war. But for those who lived through the destruction, peace on paper is not always peace in practice. The Substack piece, As Trump Brings Peace, Remember What Middle East Wars Have Wrought, reminds us that real peace isn't signed, it's built. It's built from the ruins of cities, the memories of the dead, and the will of people who must live side by side years after bloodshed. Now, we also have heard reports how Hamas has begun rounding up and executing Gazans accused of collaboration. Israel has launched retaliatory airstrikes after its soldiers were killed. The ceasefire many hoped would hold looks increasingly fragile. Michael Pack joins us today. He's an award-winning filmmaker whose work explores the cost of war and the search for truth. His film, The Last 600 Meters, captured the intensity and aftermath of the Iraq War, and his perspective on what's happening now in Gaza and Israel is both timely and essential. Michael, welcome to Detroit's Morning Answer.
Thank you. It's good to be on with you.
It's so great. A lot of what's happening in the Middle East, because we're here in Michigan, as you know, there's a huge Muslim population here in Michigan. But your article opens by warning that as peace is declared, we often forget what wars have wrought. From your vantage point, is the world celebrating too soon in Gaza and Israel?
Well, look, I think that President Trump deserves credit simply for bringing the hostages back. I am skeptical that there'll be long-term peace in the Middle East, but it's better now than it was before his intervention. I also like to point out that, so President Reagan, I remember this, I'm a lot older than you, John. I remember when President Reagan brought the hostages back from Iran in the very beginning of his presidency. Did he create peace with Iran? No, he did not. We've been at war with Iran essentially, or at least Iran has been at war with its neighbors continuously since then. But he deserved credit for bringing the hostages back, and I think Trump deserves enormous credit simply for bringing the hostages back. I think it is very tough to have peace with Hamas. They're a terrorist organization. They have not given up their stated objective of eliminating the state of Israel and driving the Jews away from the river to the sea. Yeah. So I think that's a tricky situation. I hope for the best. But you're right. We need to remember what it's like to fight these wars. And that's why I think my film, The Last 600 Meters, is timely now, even though it's about battles in Iraq in 2004. We have to not, when we think about war, we need to actually remember what it's like to fight these kind of wars, which are now going on, as you point out, in Gaza, but also in Ukraine. And our film is going to be broadcast on PBS. We're happy nationally, November 10th at 10 p.m., the day before Veterans Day. A long time for your listeners to remember, but when Veterans Day come, I hope they'll remember. So it's the way
we'll bring you back on.
Reminding people.
We'll bring you back on.
Bring you back on. That would be great.
You said something to me that was striking, and here's my question, because I think sometimes the two are different. How does the human memory of war, the kind your film portrays, differ from the political memory that often fades once the headlines shift?
Well, I think politicians often are able to make grand geopolitical decisions and forget its impact at the tip of the spear. In our film, which focuses on the two largest battles since Vietnam, Fallujah and Najaf in Iraq in 2004, we are not making. It's not about the politics, as that clip you played at the head of my segment indicates. It's really about the ground truth, what it's like from the people on the ground, from corporals up to the people, one-star generals running the battle. So we don't really look at the politics, but you can see the impact of the changing of political winds on the people on the ground. First, they're told to go into Fallujah, and then they're pulled back. First, they're told in Najaf that they're going to send Iraqi commandos in to take the Imam Ali Shrine, and then they're pulled back and handed off to Sistani, another Shia leader coming in. So they're given conflicting messages. They're subject to the political winds from Washington, and they're given conflicting, confusing messages. And that is that gap that you just asked about, John. There's a gap between those political decisions made thousands of miles away and what it's like on the tip of the spear.
Well, President Trump had this to say about the attacks. There's been an alleged that Hamas came out of the tunnels again and attacked Israeli soldiers, and Israel responded. And here's President Trump on that. I want to get your take.
What's your reaction to Israel strikes on Gaza today?
Well, we're going to have to see what's happening. We want to make sure that it's going to be very peaceful with Hamas. And as you know, they've been quite rambunctious. They've been doing some shooting, and we think maybe the leadership isn't involved in that. Some rebels within, but either way, it's going to be handled properly. It's going to be handled toughly, but properly.
Is the ceasefire still in place?
Yeah, it is.
Michael Pack, what do you say about that? He doesn't think the leadership of Hamas is involved in this. There's some rebels who still want war, it sounds like, but that the ceasefire is still holding.
Well, I hope he's right, of course, and I share President Trump's desire for peace. I'm concerned also about the well-publicized attacks by Hamas on their opposition. They're murdering, including women and children, in highly public ways of their opponents. I don't really think that's the sign of somebody who wants peace. The good thing about it, I think, thanks to President Trump's diplomacy, Hamas is isolated. Without the support of any of the Arab nations, they're kind of in a bad place, and that is why they were forced to make this deal. So I'm not sure. It's a very volatile situation. There are many people who make predictions about what's going to happen in the Middle East, and they look foolish just a few months later, so I don't want to be in that category. You can't say. But I'm very suspicious about peace with Hamas. I mean, another documentary we're working on, we're also making a series of documentaries with the Wall Street Journal opinion section that are on their website, free to your listeners. They can go to wsj.com/opinion docs. But one of the upcoming ones is about the withdrawal from Afghanistan. And that's a lesson about the difficulties of making peace with somebody like the Taliban. It's very hard. These people can't be trusted. But on the other hand, the intentions of the Taliban, like the intentions of Hamas, are clear for the world to see. They don't hide it. You know what you're dealing with. And we've been naive in the past dealing with these terrorist groups, hoping for the best. Some people call it magical thinking. And I think it's, we should avoid that. The great thing about President Trump, he's a big realist in foreign policy, and he responds very carefully to changing events. So, I hope for peace there. I'm worried.
In that pullout of Afghanistan, do you go into, but the Biden administration told us that they did everything right. We didn't see what our eyes see. Our ears didn't hear what our ears heard. Do you guys go into that pullout strategy to show that Biden could have, even though Trump set a date, he could have moved it. He could have ensured that all of the personnel of Americans were out of there. Do you guys go into that? That needs to be put out.
Yes, that's the key part of the story. The story begins in mid-April when President Biden announced we were going to go to zero against the advice of the military that wanted to keep 2,500 people there and hold Bagram. But once we went to zero and the pullout date was announced, it was just a rolling series of tragedies culminating in the suicide bombing of Abbey Gate, killing 13 American servicemen and a huge number of Afghan civilians. And it was a tragedy, and it was totally avoidable. I mean, we were going to pull out of Afghanistan. That was clear, but the horrible way it happened was totally avoidable. A series of tremendous errors, one after another. So yes, we look into that, and I think you're right. We need to examine these things. I mean, we're documentary filmmakers, so we believe in examining the past, and often people want to look away from unpleasant things, but it is really a mistake. You know, you need to learn from the past,
and that's that leads to my next question, because your film, the last 600 meters, it chronicled intense urban combat in Iraq. What lessons?
Exactly.
What lessons? Because I believe in lessons. I don't believe in just pointing out problems. What do you learn from it? How do we do better? What are the answers? What lessons from Iraq did you see repeating themselves in the Afghanistan withdrawal, and also what happened in Gaza, militarily, politically, or morally?
I think that. I mean, the last 600 meters is a depiction of the difficulty, struggles, the meat grinder aspect of these kind of urban conflicts. And the lesson is, look, we are going to be pulled into this kind of warfare again, counterinsurgency warfare. You know, of course, China is our biggest threat, and that's a near-peer warfare at a huge kinetic intensity. But there'll be endless series of counterinsurgencies. They're the dominant kind of warfare. And we need to go into them with our eyes open. We need clear objectives. We need to be clear-eyed about who we're dealing with. And we need to have a kind of consistency in our view. And clear objectives, have the means to achieve those objectives, and stick with them even across administrations. And that's a challenge in a democracy like America. But it's a challenge, I think, that we're up to, and we have done it in the past. I mean, one of the things, by the way, an important thing about the last 600 meters that we didn't talk about is we feel really happy that PBS we finished this film years ago. It took a long time to get it on PBS, but we were really happy it's on the day before Veterans Day, because I think veterans of unpopular wars do not get the honor and
so true,
and attention that they deserve. Whether we like or don't like the war in Iraq, these young men and women put their lives on the line doing what we asked them to do in heroic ways. And we depict that in the last 600 meters. And they need to be celebrated for their courage. They are heroes, whether you like the war or not. They risk their lives. You can see in the film, some of them died for fulfilling what we asked them to do. So whether you like the war or not, we need to honor the servicemen and women that were over there fighting. And that is really the thrust of the last 600 meters.
Yeah, and I just wish we had an honest media. But Michael Pack, how can filmmakers and journalists prevent historical amnesia while still fostering that hope?
That is a very good question, and I believe strongly, and I've dedicated my life and surely our new company, Palladium Pictures, to making a difference. I think the media bias that you alluded to is very real, and the country is way worse for it. I mean, you only hear one side when you listen to the establishment, legacy media, whatever you want to call it. I mean, our last big film on PBS was a biography of Clarence Thomas called Created Equal, Clarence Thomas in his own words, still available on Amazon Prime. But we are very sympathetic.
Wait. That's yours? The Clarence Thomas is yours?
Yes.
I watched that. It was an amazing... I'm a huge Clarence Thomas fan. I did not know that was part of your film. Guys, if you have not seen that, please go and sit down and watch it. It was one of the most fascinating things I've seen as it relates to Clarence Thomas. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just got excited there.
I think that's great. I hope your audience takes your advice. It's available now on Amazon Prime.
Yes,
Created
it is.
Equal, Clarence Thomas in his own words. But we made that film. We were sympathetic to Clarence Thomas. We let him tell his own story. You know, left-wing people have made like a huge number of films about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Hagiography is about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, which is fine. But if you have only a one-sided media, you don't get the Clarence Thomas story. And then how do people understand who he is or why he's making his decisions? And we really tried hard to make sure there's some, in the documentary space where we are, there's some kind of balance. And one thing we've done at Palladium Pictures, this is another thing for your listeners, is we've started an incubator program to train young or mid-career, really, filmmakers. And we offer a grant to make a short documentary, and we provide oversight, and we executive produce it, and we try to take people who have made a few little films, maybe for an organization like the Heritage Foundation or AEI or somewhere, and up their skill level. We've been doing it for 2 years, run by my son. Any of your listeners can apply if they or ask anybody they know who's sort of making in the sort of filmmaking media space, and it's on our website palladiumpictures.com. But there needs to be way more. The left does a great job of training and producing documentary filmmakers on their side. I mean, it starts with film schools, of which there are thousands across the country, and we have no such training program, and we need to start upping our game across the board.
I am definitely going to post that to all of my social media platforms, Michael Pack, because that is so true. You know what I want to see done? I really want to see something done on Antifa. I think we really need to explore what's happening with Antifa and how they're able to help destroy this country. I would love to see somebody tackle the Antifa aspect, Michael Pack.
Absolutely, a great subject.
All right.
It is absolutely.
I'm definitely going to post that, and I'm definitely going to post the Clarence Thomas as well. Michael Pack, director and producer of The Last 600 Meters. Thanks so much for joining us today on Detroit's Morning Answer.
Thank you, John. Great speaking to you.
Wow. Paul, I don't know if you've seen that Clarence Thomas. Brother, if you got Prime, go home today and watch it. We'll be right back.